Okay, aloha kākou, mai ka piʻina a ka lā I kumukahi ai kona mole ana I lehua. Aloha nui a ka koa pau. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're at, to everybody who's joined in on this webinar. My name is Kaʻiu Kimura, and I'm the Executive Director at Imiloa Astronomy Center, which is at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. On behalf of our entire staff and ohana here at Imiloa, I want to welcome all of you to our 13th annual Wayfinding celebration and our very first virtual wayfinding panel discussion, Hōkūleʻa, The Revival Begins, 1975 through 1980. I want to begin by gratefully thanking and mahaloing our generous sponsorship of the Ama OluKai Foundation in making this event possible. A virtual panel discussion is a new adventure for us, and we're very privileged to have all of you along for what we hope will be smooth sailing. So please be patient with us as we venture off on this new journey. As many of you know, Imiloa opened as a museum bringing together different worldviews, in particular worldviews from a science background, astronomy, and our right from home here, our Hawaiian culture. On the UH Hilo campus nearly 15 years ago in 2006. In that very same year, many of the people that are on this panel were here meeting at Imiloa to help us open the center to the community. And as a result, formed the Ohana Wa'a organization right prior to Imiloa opening our doors. So we are very privileged and honored and humbled to be able to have a pilina or a relationship with the Ohana Wa'a and the voyaging community. And we have been very privileged over the years to have hosted training here of crew members to help join in the Hawaiian voyaging movement. Over several years, we estimate that we helped over 700 aspiring crew members in navigation and seamanship skill development. So wayfinding offers powerful lessons that Hawaii can share with the rest of the world. Imiloa recognizes that not everyone has the time or ability to go through the intensive training necessary to become a crew member or a navigator on a sailing canoe. So under the leadership of our navigator in residence, Kālepa Baybayan, we have developed a wide variety of programs to teach the science and the art and the heart of wayfinding. And over the years, we've delivered hundreds of programs, both on-site here in Hilo and off-site at schools and communities across the islands and as far beyond our shores as well, including the US continent and abroad. So these programs include our signature Wayfinding and Navigation Festival, which we offer each fall, and for which we've been fortunate to have been a recipient of the philanthropic support of the Ama OluKai Foundation since 2015. So 2020 would have been our 13th festival, but as many other things this year, we've had to go virtual because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're here today to turn a big challenge into an exciting opportunity and continue our work on a new platform. I'd now like to introduce our partner, the Executive Director of the Ama OluKai Foundation, Dan Mclnerny. Imiloa was privileged to be among the inaugural beneficiaries of their foundation when it was first formed in 2015. And Dan personally has been a big believer and tremendous supporter of our work here ever since. So it's a pleasure to share a Zoom screen with him and all of our panelists, which I greatly mahalo each and every one of you for agreeing to participate in this panel. So now I'm gonna turn it over to Dan, and I wanna mahalo ho ya okoa po. Aloha.
Mahalo, Kaʻiu. This is really great to be a part of this tonight. We've had a long-standing tradition and relationship for the better part of 6 years, so we're very fortunate to be a part of this. And this is breaking new ground today. And welcome to all of you who are attending today's virtual panel discussion. We're excited to have each and every one of you with us. My name is Dan Mclnerny, and I'm the Executive Director of the Ama OluKai Foundation, co-sponsor of today's event in partnership with the Imiloa Astronomy Center of Hawaii. Just a little bit of background, the Ama OluKai Foundation is the give-back arm of the brand OluKai. From the sale of any of our products, a percentage of the proceeds go to our foundation, which supports nonprofit organizations in Hawaii like Imiloa. So thank you all out there for your support. It means a lot to us. And it is our kuleana, it's our responsibility to go back into Hawaii and to support the communities and individuals throughout the islands. And we're very proud to do so. Our foundation targets programs that are designed to serve Hawaiian communities, Our goal is to partner with organizations that promote the Hawaiian culture from its ancestral past to present day. We encourage those who benefit from our partnerships to carry forward the aloha spirit of giving for future generations. So mahalo for that. Since we started the Ama OluKai Foundation 6 years ago, we've partnered with the Imiloa Astronomy Center of Hawaii. I feel like we're family. I've gotten to know all the staff there, all the navigators that have been a part of our foundation and part of our events that we've been a part of. But Imiloa is a culture and science center that brings together members of the Hawaiian and astronomy communities to explore a common vision for the future. It's alive and well, believe me, in Hawaii. It's very exciting. Their interactive exhibit hall, their planetarium, their native gardens share information about the cultural and natural history of Mauna Kea with students, teachers, our local Hawaii residents, and visitors from around the world. And since it was the light of the stars that brought the early Polynesian settlers to Hawaii, Imiloa educates the public about the history of early oceanic navigation and exploration, which has become a centerpiece of today's renaissance of Hawaii's culture. The foundation, along with our partner Imiloa, we're both privileged to be and proud to be bringing you today's virtual presentation, Hōkūleʻa, The Revival Begins. And so today I have the honor of introducing 5 friends, storytellers, and crew members who will share their experiences about Hōkūleʻa and how today's revival of oceanic voyaging traditions had its genesis 45 years ago. Captain Gordon Piʻianaiʻa, Billy Richards, John Kruse, Abraham Snake Ahi, and moderator Kālepa Baybayan. So let's start with one of the first panel members, that being Gordon. Gordon Piʻianaiʻa has been a captain. He's a Hawaiian geographer and an educator. He was the former director of the Hawaiian Studies Institute at Kamehameha Schools and is a retired naval officer. In 1976, 1980, and 1985, Gordon served as captain on board Hōkūleʻa. So amazing feat and amazing accomplishments. Mahalo for that. And my good friend, Billy Richards, he's part of the panelists tonight. Billy has served as a director of several public service, Native Hawaiian, and educational boards. He's been involved with Hawaii's voyaging community since as long as I can remember, 1975, and has voyaged aboard Hōkūleʻa, Hawaii Loa, Makali'i, Hōkūleʻa, and Hikianalia. All these are great ba'as that are around the Hawaiian Islands, throughout the Pacific and around the world. So mahalo. John Kruse. After returning from the Vietnam War, John Kruse was introduced to Herb Havanui Kane when Hōkūleʻa was only 2 hulls and crosspieces yet to be lashed together. John was selected as a crew member on Hōkūleʻa's maiden voyage to Tahiti in 1976. And given his long history of sailing experience, in 2014, John was glad to be invited to participate in the Malama Honua Worldwide Voyage, which is an amazing accomplishment. Then, of course, Snake Ahi. Snake has been an old friend. He and Myrna, I spent a lot of time with him in Maui. Snake was born and raised in Lahaina. His family spent a lot of time on the water fishing, paddling, and surfing. Snake was first introduced to Hōkūleʻa in 1975 and was asked to sail on the inaugural 1976 return leg of her voyage from Tahiti to Hawaii. And since then, every time that the canoe has gone down to Tahiti, Snake has sailed on every Tahiti to Hawaii voyage since then. And then, of course, lastly, I want to introduce our moderator for this afternoon and this evening's panel, Kālepa Baybayan. Kālepa first sailed on Hōkūleʻa in 1975 and has been an active member of the voyaging community ever since. Kālepa has served as captain of the Hōkūleʻa, as well as the voyaging canoes Hōkūleʻa, Hawaii Loa, and Hikianalia. He currently serves as the navigator in residence at the Imiloa Astronomy Center of Hawaii, and in 2007 was initiated into the Order of Po, a 3,000-year-old society of deep sea navigators in Micronesia, along with 4 other Hōkūleʻa navigators by their teacher, Mau Piʻianaiʻa, on the tiny atoll of Satawal and the Caroline Islands. So if the audience has any questions tonight, please use the Q&A box and submit your questions to the panel as a whole or to particular panelists. It should be a lot of fun tonight, so thank you for being here. So let's begin our virtual tour panel discussion. And let's start with Hōkūleʻa. The revival begins with Kālepa. Kālepa, take it away.
Hey, well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. And if you're joining from the East Coast, as I know some of you are, then I guess it's late at night. But thank you. I also want to thank the University of Hawaii system for allowing us the use of this virtual platform. I want to especially thank Leanna Victor from the Webinar Services Department for helping us rookies navigate through the webinar process. So the way I structured, and there is a sixth observer, and that's Zach Schaefer. He's the IT person at the Imiloa Astronomy Center, and he's just on board in case we need troubleshooting of any kind of IT issues. But the way I structured this is as a Pau Hana talk story event. Pau means finish and Hana means work. So this is kind of after work get together among friends to talk about the formative years of the Polynesian Voyaging Society. And these four panelists, including me, are we formed the grassroots foundation for the success of the Polynesian Voyaging Society. Today, Polynesian Voyaging Society is a pretty impressive nonprofit volunteer organization dedicated to doing research in deep sea oceanic voyaging, as well as education and advocacy for the world's oceans. So I'm going to start by going around and asking every panelist to share how they got involved, or how they were invited into the family of the canoe. And I'm going to invite John Kruse to lead us into the conversation. So John, you gotta unmute. Okay, good.
Aloha, John Kruse. Fire away. What questions you want?
Okay, what I wanted was to explain how you got started with the organization, how you got first invited to come down and join the canoe.
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to come on this panel, and thank you for all my brothers and sisters in the Pacific that I've sailed with. All those years ago, I came home from the war, and I thought, well, for about a month, I stayed home in my parents' house, and my mother said, you ought to talk to somebody. So I went to Tripler Hospital on Oahu for 2 weeks. Nobody really knew too much about PTSD. I was there for 2 weeks, and I thought, wow, I can't be that crazy. So I caught the bus, and I went down to the unemployment office in Honolulu. I figured, well, I'll go and see if I can collect unemployment and go to night school. While going to night school, I went down to Hopeko down at Ala Moana Center. And there I saw my old classmate, Kimo Hugo, with Herb Conning. And I was buying some supplies for my one class that I was taking at night. And Kimo introduced me to Herb, and they said, well, we're doing this project, and we would like you to come on board and to help Uncle Wright Bowman. And so, sure. Yeah. And that's pretty much how I got involved. I started working on building paddles and researching all the paddles that was at the Bishop Museum down in the basement.
Wow, cool. All right, so the next person is Billy. Can you follow John? You gotta unmute.
Hello, everyone. Billy Richards here with my beginnings, I suppose. Actually, how I got on, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I was visiting a friend on the island of Hawaii at Honaunau. His name is Andrew Koito. He was starting a canoe club called Keoa Canoe Club, and it was in the area of a place called Halio'oho'oponopono, which I believe was a Columbia School's extension school. It was run by Boots. This guy named Boots was there. Joe Tassel. I remember Dixie Vinos and others. And anyway, so I went to go back in those days when they had canoe races, or if you joined the canoe club, you didn't order your t-shirts. you got t-shirts and then you silk screened everything. So I went to help, and we're silk screening. And then they had their very first scrimmage race on one weekend. It was Keoa against Kaʻiu Canoe Club. But what was out in the bay at Honana was Hōkūleʻa. It was anchored out there. And so they used the canoe as a turning point, as the pin. We went from shore straight out to Hōkūleʻa, around Hōkūleʻa, and back to shore. So I spent the whole day watching this canoe race. And at the end of the race, I saw all these guys start coming down to the shoreline. And they're all wearing malo and maile and tea leaf, and they look like something from out of the past. I mean, consider this, yeah. Haleo ho'oporopo, haleo keawe, puonu honanao, canoes, and Hōkūleʻa's out there. So they came down, and I was pretty impressed with the way they looked. And then this gentleman came up to Andrew and I and asked if we would shuttle. And we realized at that point that they were the crew members. And if we would shuttle the crew from shore to Hōkūleʻa, which we did. And I found out later that the person who came and asked us was Herb Kane. So Andrew and I, we shuttled the crew one by one, 4 or 5 at a time, out to Hōkūleʻa. There was also 2 elders that went out with them, an 85-year-old woman, Auntie Clara Manis from Honanao, and Papa Moses, who was one of the docents at Haleo Ho'oponopono. Haleo Ke'a at Puono Honanao. And at the end of, when we got everybody on board, we were going to push off. But Auntie Clara had the crew in a circle at the steering area, and they were going to have a prayer. They did their prayer, and at that time, one of the crew members jumped down into the hollow hook. I'm hanging on to Hōkūleʻa while I'm sitting in the #1 seat of the outrigger canoe. And this crew member asked me to come aboard. He invited me aboard. And it was unexpected, it was unplanned, but it changed my life. And been on ever since. I mean, my whole world changed, as all of ours did, just because we got involved with Hōkūleʻa. So I would say I was just in the right place at the right time. That's what happened.
I think, if people can picture the imagery of Hōkūleʻa being in the bay outside Honaunau. Haleo Keawe is a traditional house that they would keep the bones of the ranking ali'i in. And so this place is, today it still resembles prehistoric times. And so you can imagine men standing on the beach with malos, canoes on the beach, and it's on a Kona coastline, and it's very calm there. So that's quite a picture. The next person I'm going to invite is Snake. Abraham, can you unmute your microphone? There you go.
Okay. Well, I was working at the hotel, the Hilton Hotel, on the beach boy. It just happened that morning it was dark, and then I just passed Hanaka'o Beach here, Canoe Beach in Lahaina. But I seen this canoe with this crab claw. I never know what is a crab claw, sail, or whatever. But it was dark, but it just was this background of this old canoe coming from Lanai. And so what happened, I turned down and then went to the beach, and before I went to work, yeah. And I look all this, all these Hawaiians coming off the canoe and everything. But then I had to leave, go to work. Then 1 week later, Sam Kai and George Poa, they were looking for me. They came to the beach and they told Snake, we want you to be part of this canoe. So I told them, okay, I'll come down, try to see what's happening here. But once I got involved, I got stuck with it, like something that kind of pulled me in and then never let me go, yeah? So ever since that time, yeah, I was really thankful for Sam Kai and Judge Poa for giving me that energy to be part of the Hōkūleʻa.
Well, thanks, Nick. And then the last person will be Gordon Piʻianaiʻa.
Hey, aloha. Ke ola mau
Aloha.
ka koa pao. Thanks, Dan, for the intro for all of us. I think my first introduction was Pila Kikuchi was doing a map in about 1970, so about 75 at the Bishop Museum, for a proposal that was being put together for the Hōkūleʻa. Pila and I did some things together. He, great friend from Kauai, great family friend. And so I helped him with the map. Later on, that map shows up in Ben Finney's book and the PVS archives and whatnot on how to sail to Hōkūleʻa down to Tahiti and back into the Marquesas. Then I was out of my system until Dave Lyman asked me one day to go down to Sand Island, and it was there that they were working on the ba'a, and John Kruse gave me an orientation. So that was my first physical introduction to this ba'a kaulua. Then went on with my life, and about the middle of June, I received a phone call from 3 friends. So I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was on a Sunday afternoon. First one was from Herb Connie. Second was from Kavika Lyman, Captain David Lyman. And the third was from a person I could call my mentor for support in many things in my life. And it was Fred Pachola. And they basically asked me to get involved with the canoe project and go down to Tahiti and bring the canoe home. They asked for me and my brother. My brother was out at sea at the time. So
Brother Norman, yeah?
Brother Norman, who's a retired sea captain for Matson. But he was out at sea, so I mentioned to Dave that maybe Kimo Lyman would be a good choice. And of course, we all know Kimo is a good choice. But that's how I got involved. I got that call, and that sort of changed my life and hopefully many lives. So as a crew member, I've always been appreciative and fortunate to have been a part of this great historic venture.
Okay, so thank you. So I'm going to take this thing historically from 1975, and hopefully within the next hour we can climb our way up to 1980. But we go as far as we can, because I think the story is real important. So John and Billy, I'm going to start with you. 1975. Who's involved with the construction process, John, down and where did the construction of the canoe? Where was it at? You got to unmute. Yeah.
Okay. How we, I want to say something. Sometimes all of us who are still connected to this this icon at the beginning, we had to learn new ideas and let go of ideas that were old. And we're almost like primitive astronauts. Many people had their doubts. Is this trip that you guys are going to take, is it going to work? Is this design the right sail design? Are we doing it the way our ancestors did? Many questions. Even my parents were telling me when I came home from service, even had signed up. I was a police cadet recruit. And I was thinking, my God, I could have been a cop. Oh, that's not too good. But to bring you up to that time, the canoe swamped off of Kauai, and Herb Connie and Rudy Choi asked me to go to Kauai, and Billy was on that swamping with Kiani. Kimo Hugo also on that swamp. They left Honolulu, and then they started to take on water. At that time, those hulls that we see, the Hōkūleʻa now, we've learned by mistakes. We had no subfloor, and as you see it today, and we have the hatch covers higher. Before, the hatch covers were right on the subfloor. So doing all that, and then trying to figure out how to get this canoe ready to go to make this trip. We ended up living down at Snug Harbor at the University of Hawaii's site for the Kilo Moana, was the oceanographic was there, and then living with everybody in these 2 40-foot containers. It was almost like a bonding, but it was almost like it was wretched conditions, you know. These B-52s and airlines, planes flying over you constantly and reverberating, and you're trying to sleep in this container. I kind of lost my train of thought, what I was trying to tell you. Maybe Bill can chime in.
Just let me, so there was no, and we're walking up to the 1975, the first swamping.
Yes.
There was no wash deck on the canoe.
No.
So what a wash deck is, well, I gotta explain this to people out there, because, okay, so there's the halls, and then there's a higher deck within the halls that's called a wash deck, and that deck is slightly higher than the sea level. So when water comes in on top of that deck, it naturally, if you have a exhaust hole, right, it'll naturally flow to the next level down, which is the ocean level. So it didn't have a wash deck. It was basically exposed to it was just halls that was open to the ocean. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go over to Billy. So Billy, if you can maybe talk about some of the training that led up to 1975, because the canoe went around to every single island, right?
Yeah, okay. So from what I understand, and this is before I even got on, yeah, canoe gets, I think it was a shipyard in Honolulu Harbor, where the 2 hulls that John talks about. I remember seeing them on a truck being hauled to Kualoa, on the way through Wilson Tunnel. And then from what I understand, the construction of the canoe was done at Kualoa. John was involved, I think Nainoa was involved, Kainoa Lee and Maka'ala Yates, I believe, was also. That's where Kimo Hugo got involved too. And then the canoe was launched in March 8th of 1975. And then from that point on, they trained, from what I understand, this is before me, yeah? So I didn't get on until like summer, about 3-4 months later. But they would train in Kaneohe Bay, and even Ma was with them at the time. And then from what I understand, the way it worked was they would, on Oahu, people would come every weekend and train. And then from all the people that came to train, they would select 18 individuals to take it to the next island. The next island was Maui, where you got invited to, saw the canoe, and where Snake was invited. And then they had training there. And then you brought the canoe to the island of Hawaii, and the training started there. And it first started training in Honana, which really wasn't the best place to do because you're in the lead, there's no wind.
Right.
In fact, when I got on board, we motored all the way from Honana all the way up to Keaole. But so that was how it worked. You went from island to island to train, and then after and then after the swamping, they decided they started choosing the crew who was going to be taking the canoe to Tahiti. The crew assembled, and it was the crew that actually had redone working on Hōkūleʻa. At first, it was myself, John, Kurt Ashford, and what was the other gentleman's name, John? Anyway, we worked on the canoe. Like as you were saying, there was no coaming. The coaming for the hatch covers weren't high. They were like flush to the deck. The bulkheads were not watertight. So if water got in the number 6 hole, it made its way up to number 1. And that's how the thing swamped, yeah. And the kinds of what the Hōkūleʻa had at the very beginning, if you folks remember, was kind of like the outrigger canoes when they're crossing the Molokai Channel, the canvas cover. That's what happened with
right.
was on board Hōkūleʻa. The problem was the water was coming in the number 6 where the guy steers, because remember how we steered before? Didn't have the big paddles. You had to sit in that hole and poke, yeah. So the water was coming in through there, number 6, and then making its way because the bulkheads weren't tight, watertight, all the way up to the canoe, and then eventually the swamp. The canoe was eventually taken back to brought back to Oahu. The crew was assembled, and we all got together, and then we refurbished the canoe. And so because of that, because of the swamping, there was very little training that could take place before we left for Tahiti. And we had Ben Finney's smaller canoe. We would go out, but it wasn't really on Hōkūleʻa that we had a lot of training. So it was, when we left, it was like learn as you go. So basically.
You're talking about when you left for Tahiti?
Yes, when we left for Tahiti. Yeah.
So I talked with Shorty about. So in 1975, you guys have the first swamping of the canoe.
Yes.
And then it's brought back to Oahu. Then you guys you guys really need to rebuild the canoe because the canoe's not going to leave until it's put back together. Nothing structurally was done to the hulls, though, right? Was a wash deck?
No. We actually the hulls we built watertight bulkheads. We changed.
Oh, you did build watertight.
Wash deck, and we raised the coaming so it was higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else did we do? We also had within the front and back manu, prior to the swamping, we had a whole bunch of foam pieces in there. I think we got those out. But the decks, pretty much the decks remained the same. What else changed was Mao's presence. When Mao came, one of the things that happened when the canoe, actually when we're going between the islands, and then what happened when we swamped, was the kinds of lashing that was used on Hōkūleʻa was the same kinds of lashing that you use on an outrigger canoe. Okay, so the canoe, sometimes the canoe would, while you're at sea, you see it flex. The hulls were flexing like this, yeah. And some would say, well, that's how it goes with the ocean. Well, we learned from Mao that no, that's not the way it's supposed to. So when Mao came, he changed the lashings to the kind of lashing that we do now. It is meant for voyaging canoes and not for smaller outriggers. So yes, there were great changes. Even the sail configuration changed, right? We went from those Marquesan sails, really low, to the more high aspect sails of the Kālepa sails that they supposedly had gotten by going to in Kona and the petroglyphs, and actually tracing the petroglyph to get the configuration of the sail that we finally used for our trip to Tahiti. So there were a number of changes, to the canoe. to make it safer. But it took a lot of time, yeah, it did. So okay, swamps in October. I don't think we got the canoe back to Oahu until November or maybe even later. And then we have to depart by May 1st. So there's a lot of work to be done. And we had to relax the yakos, all of that, you know. And so it was rough.
Yeah.
So with all that,
you know,
yeah, we had very little time to actually take the canoe out sailing.
yeah, I talked with Shorty, and he says, you know, come the day you guys were leaving to go to Maui, he said it was kind of like if nobody was gonna make a move to go take the canoe to Maui, the trip would have never happened. And so, yeah, glad it did. But just some background information, because you know, I think, you know, I think you guys are so busy working on a canoe, and then Ben and Herb guys was, I guess, so busy trying to raise money for the project that was there any time when the crew got together to talk about the objectives of the trip, try to synergize everybody's efforts, try to build some kind of cohesion to the spiritual side of getting ready to go on the ocean?
Okay, this is the world according to Billy Richards, nobody else. Okay, this is my observation. I get on the canoe late in the training. I get on the canoe at Honau now. We sail up to Kauai. And on the way, we stop at Kona Village. Actually, John was on board already, and so was Maka'ala Yates, one of our returning crew members. We get to Kona Village, and we meet Tawa Taupu for the first time. He had hair, funny hair. And then we went to Kauai High, and that's where we met Shorty. Okay, so we get picked up. I get picked up. Kimo Hugo says, "Why don't you stay on board the canoe?" So I'm fortunate enough to take the canoe to Maui and then to Molokai. But you know, it was kind of interesting because, as Herb put it, wherever the canoe went, people came. You know, like on the island of Hawaii, people would come down in droves. Hawaiian people, a lot of Hawaiians would come down in droves. On the way to Kona, Iulani Luahine got on the canoe, and Io. So you had these luminaries, and you had people. So, you know, while you're on board, on one hand, it's kind of like people feeling like rock stars, yeah? I'm a celebrity. But at the same time, you're being slowly exposed to these people and to the response of the local people to the canoe. And everywhere we went, then when we met Sam Ka'ai, he did the same thing. He teaches you. You know, I remember him because people said they were making fun of the canoe because he had upside down sails. You know, how come you guys got upside down sails? And Sam Ka'ai said, if you want to be Hawaiian, you got to turn your sail upside down and empty it of things un-Hawaiian, and you will discover who you are. So those kinds of moments gives you that spiritual kind of thing. But it wasn't until, for me, it wasn't until we got to Molokai that things really changed. Because, you know, part of the training, when we went to Island to Island, Herb, Ben, Tommy, they would have this video of the launching of Hōkūleʻa. They would talk about the launching, and then they would make these presentations and then invite people to come down. And I remember, particularly on Molokai, Herb was doing the thing, and he was doing the same, you know, announcements down. And then we were sitting there, and then we heard this voice in the back. It was done in a gym. We heard this voice in the back of the gym, and the gym said, the voice said, "On this trip, who's gonna go?" And he said, "Oh, we're gonna have our crew members. You know, these people gonna train, and then you know, then so the voice asked, "Are they going to be Hawaiians?" And he said, "Yes." He says, "Are they going to be taken care of?" You know, so his voice on one hand, it's like watching a tennis match. There's one voice over here pitching the question and Herb trying to answer. Yeah? Are they going to be taken care of? Oh yes, we're going to have funding and all that and stuff. You know. So then they introduced Tommy as one of the, you know, the best watermen in Hawaii, and he is. You know, he's a great waterman. And the voice asked, "Is he going?" And Herb said, "Yes." He says, "Well, why is he going?" He said, "Because he's one of the best watermen in Hawaii." And the voice said, "You mean in all of Hawaii? Number one Hawaiian better than him." And that's where I think things started to change. You know, it was a product of the times. It's a very different times. If you consider what was happening at the time, yeah. I remember I was in college and the Black Panthers came to talk. Russell Means, so the American Indian movement. It was that changing time and stuff, and so it was happening on Molokai and around the island slowly. And I think that's if we had spiritual aspects relative to understanding what's going on, it was that movement that was happening. But when Mao came, he was the catalyst that solidified that heart and of who we are and why we're here and why we're going to do what we're going to do. And I think all of us here on this, we knew he was the one we were going to follow. He was Maui to me.
I think the audience, I mean, just to give them some context, this is 1975, right?
Yeah.
And there is a trifecta of awareness movements that are happening in Hawaii, right? One was the revival of Polynesian voyaging, right? Hōkūleʻa. Another was the effort to stop the bombing on Kaho'olawe. That was another huge effort. Another effort was the effort to save the Hawaiian language.
Right.
So all these things are happening around the state, right? It's giving our community a chance to become aware of issues that they were never aware of before. My grandfather, for example, he's a retired Army person, right? Master Sergeant, and he said, we don't have to bump Kaho'olawe. We can do something else, you know. And so the awareness level was changing. I'm trying to move the conversation on. Okay, you guys are in Maui. You guys are gonna leave. You guys are leaving to Tahiti, because we're going to talk about the Tahiti trip now, you and John. There are two options, right? And I want you to explain the options because when he come back to Gordon and Snake, I want Gordon to talk about Kelly.
You're frozen. JK, take it.
And the question you wanted to know was about why we went north of Maui and on the east side of Maui versus going to Keala, using Keala Kahiki. Is that the one?
I think so. I think that's what he's trying to pose. Yeah.
Yeah, that the when we left Honolulu, we had already heard from the Navy commandant for the Kaho'olawe, because prior to that, Walter Riddy asked us with some of the elders from Molokai if we could bring these people on the canoe to go to Kaho'olawe. And of course that wasn't going to happen, because the Navy said if any canoe vessel gets, I think within a half a mile of Kaho'olawe, it would be impounded. So that was sort of one of the reasons why, okay, we'll go north of the windward side of Maui. And so for the first 5 days, almost a week into the voyage, we just got hammered by bad weather, and we finally made it down to
South Point.
Figured out that on this crew of all these, I like to call that a wolf pack of Hawaiian watermen and women, on that trip going home. But you would think to yourself, I wonder why they put all these good guys, and I was humbled to be part of that group to sail on the first trip. I think it was because the Navy said that we couldn't use that Kealakahiki channel, basically, and they just said, okay, rather than stop the whole project, we'll just go north of and get on the east side of Maui.
I agree. I think, that we were told that the reason why we were going to take that route was to get easting. But I'm thinking about, Ben studied this thing. I mean, he lived, eat, sleep, breathe this project, and Herb and Tommy. So why would they not take Kealakahiki?
Right.
I think they felt they were forced to, had to.
Right. Right. So it was a political reason why they chose.
I believe so.
Okay. How many days did it take you guys to get to Tahiti?
30.
To Mativa.
31 to Tahiti, I believe.
31. Yeah.
31 days.
Yeah.
31 days to Tahiti.
And
so it took you guys maybe 29 days to Mativa. Yeah. And then 2 days.
7 days in a.
I know that. I know that it was getting. I mean, it was a long trip, and everybody was. It wasn't pleasant, right? The sleeping conditions weren't good. But anything else you guys want to share about 1976? Because I want to move it on to 1976, a return trip in 1977.
No, I'm good.
All I have to say is, there were conflicts on board. I think, everybody had a reason for wanting to be on a part of this particular leg. It just so happened that as things developed, as people, as scientists, as the culture, everything developed at that time, it became a cross purpose.
Yeah.
Unintentional. I think it was, in fact, I know it's unintentional.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
yeah.
Go ahead.
It was unintentional, and for us, I know for the crew, that all we wanted to do was just make sure Ma was taken care of, because we believed in him, really believed in him. So we felt the need to protect.
Remember, Kālepa, that voyage, that first voyage, different to different people. For some, it was this science experiment. And for others, even myself, it was the cultural and spiritual awakening. This conflict ensued was probably more about then personality differences of Haole versus Hawaiian.
Yeah.
And if you step back, the goal was really the same for both parties. It was to validate and establish the navigation was capable and responsible for setting the Pacific Hawaiians knew it deep inside themselves, and the scientists wanted to prove it.
Yeah. You know, how about 76 and the navigation. And, you know, he's working with David Lewis,
Yeah.
and he had a personal complaint that he didn't like the way the questions came across. It's like they were always questioning him about how does he know, you know, that he's, you know, where he predicts we are. And his thing was like, if they are so good at knowing all this information, why don't they navigate the canoe? So
Yeah.
he was unhappy. But I think as a collective, we were all learning how to become better brothers, how to become better sailors, how to embody the discipline of being out at sea. So I'm gonna move it on now. So the canoe arrives in Tahiti in June of 1976, and then the canoe has to go through this whole, it's like a whole internal dry dock again, and then there is a leadership change, and I'm not exactly sure the reasons why, but Gordon, can you just kind of pick it up where you get invited to take over the reins of the canoe? Gordon. Okay, we'll go to Snake then. We'll go to Snake. Snake.
Yeah.
So you're the return crew from Tahiti to Hawaii, right? What was your role on board the canoe?
You know, there's so much things happened at the time. We had to get the canoe ready to go back home, yeah. But we weren't sure if the crew that went down there were going to be the same crew going home. They're stuck in about changing this, changing that. But, you know, I got everybody together and just told them, you know, we just got to do whatever we need to do, finish the canoe, get it ready to come home. You know, no matter what happened, you know, at least we're there to pretty much support whoever is going to take the canoe home, yeah, because we weren't sure when we're going to go back home or if the canoe keep on traveling to different islands, yeah. But we got pretty much the canoe ready to go back home, but then the canoe has to go to all the different islands, Morea, then all the way to Raiatea, and then, you know, from there, but a lot of we didn't sail. We had the tonu, the big freight boat, yeah?
Yeah.
The tonu, yeah? That's
Yeah.
the one who towed us mostly all the way to Raiatea. And then we had to wait for the tonu to come back because something would happen at one of the outside island. So we stayed there about almost maybe a couple of weeks, you know, just getting ready. Wally Forsyth was there with us. Yeah, just to wait because we weren't going to sail back. We're going to be towed back with a tonu, yeah. And when the tonu came back, he told us all the way back to Papaete, yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there, then we pretty much knew who was going to be on our canoe to come back because when Gordon and Kimo came aboard, yeah, for take care of the captain and the navigation or whatever, yeah, to be in the canoe home. So it was that particular time, yeah, everybody, we were ready to go sail back home. We're just waiting for Gordon and Kimo at that time, yeah.
Yeah, and Gordon hadn't sailed on Hōkūleʻa, right? Right here, he'd never sailed on Hōkūleʻa, but he got appointed captain. So he comes down to he and Kimo, right?
Yeah.
Kimo Lyman gets recruited because Norman Piʻianaiʻa, Gordon's brother, cannot cannot sail the canoe home. And Kimo's recruited because Kimo's a Western mariner, and he knows how to use a sextant. So he's gonna when the canoe gets to Tahiti in 1976, Mao abandons the project and goes back to his home islands in the Caroline Islands. You guys are stuck in Tahiti without a navigator, and so that's when Gordon is asked to come down to replace Kavika as captain to sail the canoe home, and then he asked to bring Kimo Lyman as his navigator. Okay, so that's the setting for you guys. So, but one question is, there's this special place in Tahiti at Tautira. Tahiti looks like Maui, right? There's a big head and a small head, and Tautira is at the end of the island on a small portion of it. And ever since 1976, there's been this special relationship with the villagers of Tautira. The road ends there in Tautira. That's the end. It's a farming community, but it's a paddling mecca. It is for 40-something years. They've always won the championships. I know every year annually when the paddlers are recruited to paddle for Mighty Nui. Mighty Nui is the name of the team there. The paddlers go into the church there, and they sign a agreement with the minister and the coach in the church. So how did that relationship with Tautira start?
Oh, I mean, I think it's from Punio too, Punio. And then
Punio
was, like he's a canoe builder, was it? He was building all the canoes and everything. And he could pretty much open his door for, everybody to come to his place. And, but I bet you had mayor too, yeah. I forget what his name was.
Sani.
No, Tutaha.
Tutaha Salmon.
Yeah, Tutaha, and all them, we got involved with, I think, had Wally down there too, with Moku and everybody, yeah.
So they were taking care of the crew. But ever since 1976, right, there's been this strong relationship with Tautira. I'm going to go to Gordon. Gordon, if you can unmute. Okay, we're talking about 1976, getting ready to come home. You receive a phone call from Herb Connie, and then from who called you again? And how did that whole recruitment process go?
Herb, Dave, and Fred. Herb
Right.
Connie, Dave Lyman, and Fred Cachola. And they asked if I would go down and bring the canoe home. Of course, my reply was there are a couple people that I had to sit down and discuss this invitation with. And my dad certainly was one of them. He never shook his head yes, never shook his head no. He says, and I don't know what his involvement was with the PBS at that time. I know he was involved somehow. And somebody mentioned Homer Hayes. My dad and Homer were really good friends. And then the other person I had to confer with and get support from spiritually, in a sense, as well as physically, was this guy called Tutukale, Charles Ken. Charles Ken was like a family member through marriage, and I was with him for a couple of years, but eventually the final approval was meeting with Rudy Choi, and answering a lot of questions, good questions. Rudy was right to the point, no hemming and hawing. And we're down at the Tahitian Lanai. He was having his breakfast, and great breakfast. And then we met again, and he was the one that finally gave approval. And I think Kimura and I only had a couple weeks to get everything together, sit down with Dave and Rudy and learn about the crew down in Tahiti. There are a lot of things going through our minds during the 2 weeks. Settling the score with your family at home, saying, well, here's what's happening. But
Yeah, but you came to the canoe with did you sail on Hōkūleʻa before that July 19th?
except for John's orientation, that was
That's all you.
that was the only time I ever stepped on the canoe. Never sailed on it. And,
yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, so you're going to Tahiti, you're going to assume responsibility for the canoe and the crew and their safety. You've basically never been on board the canoe. You've sailed monohulls before, but you haven't sailed on this vessel. It must have been, first of all, it's pretty brave, and it's a pretty daunting task, but you seem to find your way through it. And what was your first impressions of the crew when you met them?
well, first of all, we left Honolulu and got into LA, 6-hour layover, and then got into Tahiti 2:30 in the morning on July the 2nd. Hans Carlson picked us up, met the crew, and there's a lot of apprehensive feelings going through me because I did not know anybody on the crew list. And, but I think listening to Dave and Rudy and Fred about who the crew members were, some of their strengths, and that was very, very important. Because from 2:30 July the 2nd, we left at noon July the 4th, you know, so any thoughts of partying up there? And boy, that went out the window real quick. And plus my sea bag went on to France, never arrived in Tahiti. But my impression of the crew, I felt that they were selected because they went through a process and they were the ones picked. So my orders were, you're in charge, you select the final crew, you talk to Captain Burke about departure time when the weather's good, bring the canoe home and cruise safely, and that was basically the standing orders. Very straightforward, and but like I've shared that my real orientation to the canoe was getting down there, meeting the crew. There were really no questions on their end. Meeting with Kavika, letting him know what was happening. We stayed with Ben Finney when we first got into Tahiti, but Ben was concerned about, how come Kimo Lyman's here? I already have a navigator. And so, well, you have your navigator, I have my navigator. And that's the way it's going to be. And we never saw Ben again. So, and as I've shared with John and Billy, getting down to the canoe and going through an orientation, quick orientation, Billy and John just made everything so comfortable. You know, they opened up their arms basically and said, "Oh, come here. Here's some of the things about the canoe, sailing it and whatnot." The canoe was ready to come home. That's why I think Snake and the rest of the guys and Billy, John, Moku, Wally, whoever else was down there did a great job of getting the canoe ready. So
you know, Kālepa, what Gordon was saying was when most of the first crew had already left to go back to Hawaii, and so the only 3 guys that were still there hey, we gotta repair this canoe and get it ready for the crew to take it home, was Billy, Shorty, and myself. And so the canoe was dry docked at Whariute on the other side of Papeete in Warren Ellicott's dry dock. Warren was the brother of Alban Ellicott. And at the time we were staying up at the Hotel Tahara. But when the second crew came and we all got together, it was like Gordon said, we got to get this canoe pretty much get it ready to sail back to Hawaii.
Okay.
You know,
I'm
John,
gonna move it.
on our end in Honolulu, while this was this period of time, we only heard negative things. Mao left the canoe. Why did he leave? You know, we had no idea what was going on down in Tahiti. And I'm glad what was going on did go on because, like I said, the canoe and crew were ready to come back home. I was kind of apprehensive. Sunday, July the 4th, Independence Day, right? Bicentennial Project. Well, what a tie-in. But they marched us off to the church right in town. And I said, they actually marched us. They said, no, you got to go to church. That was something new. But as we sat down there in this open air church with all these people, sitting in a pew that next to me was Kim Lyman, and the airs were very, very light. And I was kind of concerned. Maybe this wasn't the proper time to leave. But as we're listening to the preacher speak and talk, and he was a big guy, huge man. The pages on the big Bible on the altar started turning over page by page by page. And I jabbed Kimo. I says, we got some wind, brother. So you know, that man, when speaking up, we better get out of church and get down to the canoe. But you know, that was a sign, I think, important sign with those pages turning on that big Bible. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys sailed home in 1972. I think as I recall, it takes you guys 24 days to get to Hawaii.
Actually, 22.
22.
About 21 and a half, yeah. But we made a stop on the way home.
Oh, you're right. You guys stopped at Kālepa, right?
Kālepa, yeah. Got out.
Yeah. You guys.
You know what happened is that I thought about coming in below, coming into Honolulu instead of going around the east end and north of the islands. But Honolulu started to dictate after we picked up Kumukai, and which is fine. You know, it was their canoe. But all communication was between me and the escort boat was with handheld walkie-talkies. So he had to relay everything from Honolulu to the canoe and I back to the mail tie. And as we sailed around the northern part of Mokuokeawe, the big island, and then we passed Maui, Snake's home. Maka'ala's home was Hawaii, Snake was Maui, and we come to Kalaupapa, Penny's home. That was one of the most touching events for those on a canoe in the past 45 years for sure. But Honolulu had radio mail tie, and they said, do not come into Honolulu because you're going to be coming in at night. And on the canoe, we had no idea what was being planned. And their words, and it was Herb Kane, his words were hove to in the Molokai Channel overnight. And I replied back to Bob Burke. I said, no, we're not staying in the channel overnight. Reply back to the mail time, tell them to stay in the channel overnight. My reply was negative. We're going to go into Kalaupapa and get into the lee of the island. And that's what we did. And Snake, you can tell everybody what happened. It was fantastic. Penny was home.
Yeah, Penny. One day okay, he said, somebody threw, oh, Penny, get your panty or something. I got it.
Yeah, Penny's auntie.
The auntie.
So Honolulu said, okay, go and spend the night there and protect in a protected sheltered area, and do not go ashore, and do not take on any food. And that was easy. But when we made the turn and dropped our hooks, remember Snake? They all came down, but they were at the point out there on the peninsula, waving and shouting and flashing their headlights on their vehicles, and I think for me, that was the first indication of value to these people, to the people of Hawaii. I mean, wow, here was Molokai and Kalaupapa, and these people were just showing the greatest aloha and affection for this vessel. Anyway, we got there, and it was kind of funny. We dropped a couple hooks right up there by the wharf, and I asked if they had any 4x6s, and they could run them between the bow and the wharf, and they brought a couple down, and some of them were really smashed. Bernard was smashed. He was apologizing. No more beer, no more wine. Sure. Honolulu never said the short people could not come on the canoe. So we invited them on the canoe, and we had a great time.
Bernard,
yeah. Wow. So 22 days. The community visits you guys before you guys arrive on Oahu. Then 1977, right? 1977, right? That's 1976. 1977 is Kelly Kahiki, Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us about that project? What?
Yeah, the project was just to provide some kind of support to what history, what traditions we have about departure from Hawaii, and of course the channel is named Kealii Kahiki. The point's named Kealii Kahiki. But it's only that channel between Lanai and Kaho'olawe. It's not that whole channel that goes all the way up to Lahaina. That's the Ao channel up there. And then the Alala Keiki is the one around when you get around Mclnerny, going around to Hana, I guess. That's Alala Keiki. So I just put together a project, small project, to see if we could do something that would meet up to the original course of the 76 departure track, and that's all we're trying to do, support oral tradition. You know, I had no problem with the Navy because they said you have to stay a half-mile offshore, and you know, that's easy to do that.
Yeah, but
I think that was successful.
Yeah, and that trip proved that the course that you guys were on in 1977 would have eventually hooked up with the 1976 track. Is that correct?
I would say any course you lead from Hawaii, any island. You know, if you know anything about sailing, then you know you want to get your easting. So when you start off, everybody's going to try to get that easting. I think under the original proposal for the project, they had listed Keauhou Bay and the South Point area as departure points. So even they knew that they wanted to get that initial head start.
Okay, well, that leads us into 1978, right? In March of 1978, Nainoa proposes a trip to navigate Hōkūleʻa back to Tahiti, right? And he's been working on re-engineering the art of non-instrument navigation. I call it non-instrument navigation because it's basically navigating without instruments. as opposed to wayfinding. It's a math science-based system. So Snake and John, can you, well, Snake, we'll lead off with you, Snake, about the first 4 hours of that, or anything you want to share about the 1978 trip.
I know when we left, they said the weather was gonna be okay. But once we got between Molokai and Oahu, the weather pretty much went changed. Like
The most severe, huh?
No, yeah, the weather was wind was stronger. The waves were bigger too. Yeah. I think because of how the hatch covers was, the water was going in so fast from the front side.
So you're just taking water on the bow.
Yeah, on the starboard side. Yeah, on the right side.
On the leeward side hull. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the team somehow go into each hall so fast that the team just kind of tip over and like a.
So the bulkheads never worked. John, was the bulkheads working?
Oh.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think that what had happened was, this is my take on when we left Magic Island, wind was pretty strong coming out of Manoa, and I kind of thought, when I was asking Leon, we went out, said our goodbyes, all our blessings, and it was almost like the energy was telling you to go. And in my better judgment, I think David or Kavika Lyman, I thought, well, maybe he's going to go out of the Alawai Small Boat Harbor and take a right turn and go into Honolulu Harbor and wait. I kind of had that feeling, but as soon as we got by Ala Moana by the bowl, we started going up, and then by that time we got up by outside of the Elks Club. It was all black, and you couldn't see Molokai. It was on front coming in. And so by that night, I remember Leon telling us, everybody get your foul weather gear on, and if you're off watch, go down in your compartment. By 11 o'clock that night, like Snake said, waves came over the gunnel and blew off that hatch cover like it was nothing, even though we had it tied down. And so Eddie was trying to get a 5-gallon bucket in there. So every 5-gallon buckets of water he's getting out, there's 30 gallons
Going in.
Yeah.
The leeward side, that's where Norman is in the radio room. And now Norman's got these batteries inside that compartment. Next thing you know, because of that weight of all on the starboard side, the hull started listing. And then we thought, well, I remember, I don't know if it was Snake or Weedamai or Owl. They were trying to cut the line to.
Was me.
Yeah, it was you, Snake. Huh?
Eddie was on that steering paddle. And as we fell off, and he was trying to keep the steering paddle down, and because that starboard hull was so full of water, it kind of just like turtled over like a big catamaran. Yeah. We were maybe, I don't know, Snake, maybe 5 minutes up in the air, one whole hull like that, then finally over. And then I thought, well, this is completely pitch black. We're trying to help Norman and Nainoa out of the compartment by use my rigger's knife to cut the canvas, and so they can get out, because now the whole thing was upside down. And I'm thinking, when you go out, I went down and I could feel them. I said, when you go down, you remember that there's the railing now. You got to go underneath the railing to get out. You can't. Well, she can get stuck on the railing, and then next thing you know, it'll be in worse. So that night when we got in the water and this canoe was upside down, I realized that, well, this sail is over. And you know, it's kind of ironic when you tell people that, and then, you know, what happened when we got into the morning and into the next day. I like to think that maybe, you know, we if we could have done it all over again, we probably wouldn't have gone on that day, or take a right turn and go into Honolulu Harbor and hang out. That's my take on it.
So the next day you guys are in the water all day, right? Snake, I don't think everybody's heard that you initially went off on the surfboard to go paddle for help. Yes, Snake.
Yeah, I did. But because I was pretty far away, but I seen the Coast Guard plane come over, yeah. So I think maybe the plane seen us, returned, and but nothing happened, yeah. But you know, that night we only flipped over. We all was pretty much standing on a running board on the outside, yeah. Yeah, John?
Yeah, it was upside down, right? Everything was upside down.
It was holding on the bottom part of the canoe, yeah, how the sharp edge, like. But then we was trying to get rope.
Yeah.
Rope and tie us to the front and the back canoe, yeah. Just around our backs, like, so that in case you sleep, you don't fall off, you know, away from the canoe, but the rope is gonna hold you against the hulls, yeah. It's pretty much kept us pretty safe, John, yeah. The rope and staying together. To me, I was trying to just survive that night, and you know, we know we had a lot of water in the canoe, food and everything. We just want to be together all night until the next morning where we can see.
Yeah, wait for the light, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the good part about it, when I thought Sam Kai was gonna be not the bravest person, but he was out there swimming around and with his bug suit or whatever, yeah. And feel like he just swimming around and then trying to get things too. But yeah, the idea was to just stay together, help each other, yeah. But
and then later on, Eddie asked Kavika if he could go for help, and then he paddles off. You know, I read Civil Beat. There was a stewardess from Hawaiian Airlines that was retiring, and she talked about being on that plane that spotted you guys. I guess it was the last plane between Kona and Oahu, and that what she noted was that you guys had already was lucky that you guys were sighted by the pilot. You guys had already floated into flights that vector fly only between Tahiti once a week, and so yeah, it was lucky.
Yeah, actually, you know what happened? I just happened to look up, and then I seen the plane coming pretty much off course from Lanai. I think they was really away from their route or whatever. But I said, Captain, there's a plane coming over. So it's getting ready to flare everything, and then you know, he shot it before the thing went over us. Then but I never know what airline was that, but the plane would circle around us and giving the light signal that they have us in sight. And then after the plane, like 3 times that thing went around, then they went back to Oahu. Next thing we seen this chopper from nowhere, just coming right over the water, like not really high, just off the water, coming, zooming near, finally. And then lucky we had the flare where I think Leon guy shot the flare, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that the chopper can see us, yeah. And funny thing about it, I was like the third guy in the front of the canoe, like holding on, yeah. So when the chopper tried to land, the wave was trying to somehow grab the chopper, like all the waves is coming, like it was gonna jump on a chopper, but the chopper lifted up, but he couldn't land. So what they did, they dropped the basket, and then each time one of us would swim. But then when I was the third one going on bucket or whatever, they put me up, and Coast Guard guys told me, you know, there's a big shock. I told me that's okay. That's our family. You watching us. So he never said Auntie. I just told him that. That's what it is, yeah. So
I know there was sharks in the water though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were several sharks in the water. I remember Mr. Pop's buddy, you know, he was asking the crewman when he got fished up in the basket. He goes, "Wow, there's some big mahi-mahi. You never see no 12-foot mahi-mahi." I said, "Yeah, they're going through all the 5-gallon buckets that are floating with the coolers all around there, looking for stuff to eat." And prior to us getting found, during that day, Eddie had left around 9 o'clock in the morning, and he had his he took in his Ziploc bag or a waterproof bag, he took some sugar, an orange, and you know, he had his foul weather gear on, the pants, the yellow pants, and the jacket, and then he had the life vest on, and then we had that city and county lifeguard board, and then that board, you know, during the night, the early part of the swamping, I remember Kurt and Weedy, they kept pushing that board back and forth because it was banging everybody in the legs, you know. And then after a while, you didn't have the board. And what was happening was the jaws was checking everybody out, just nudging into you, banging in your legs, you know. And we kept looking at each other, said, "That's not the board, brah." And here we go. Didn't say anything. You know, said, "That ain't the board." And then, you know, the next day, Leon, he goes, "God, I wonder if my little 6-quart coolers down there's got my smokes in there." So I dove underneath, and then I got into that last compartment, and there was the air cavity, and that thing was floating, right? So then I figured, hey, there's some oranges floating around. I put some oranges in that thing, and then I grabbed it and I pushed it down. And now I had to remember that the railing is lower, so I got to go dive way down deep into the purple blue to get this cooler. So I pushed it down, and then I got up, and Leon, he goes, "You got my smokes?" I said, "Well, I think I got the smokes." And then he goes, "AP, you forgot the matches, man. Where's the freaking matches?" I said, not in there." He put the smokes in his mouth, even a soggy, wet cigarette. He put it in his mouth.
You know what happened? You know, that morning when the sun came up, had some guys overboard, yeah.
Yeah.
Overboard. The current took away, went away, like the whole day went away. And then the thing somehow came back. The thing came floating right back to the canoe. He's the kind of overboard. And then, oh, must be somebody who's good to him, you know, like. But, you know, it's amazing.
No, I was at the airport when you guys landed on the choppers, and you know, you know, we lose one crew member, right? We lose one Hawaiian, and we'll never recover from that. But we had to recover. We did search for Eddie for a couple of days until people were getting hurt in the search, and Pops said, Pops Aikau, Eddie's dad, gathered everybody together and said, just let Eddie be with the sea. But I remember in the recovery process that a couple of weeks later, we had that meeting at the Queen's conference room, where Pinky invited Governor Ariyoshi to come. I'm not sure if you guys remember that. It was a private meeting, and that he said that he would do whatever we wanted to do, and just know that that the crew had his support. So we had to go back to the drawing board and look at how we had been operating and doing business. And so for the rest of 1978 and 1979, we rebuilt Hōkūleʻa. And when I'm not sure who made the decision that we're going to go back to Tahiti, but we did make the decision in 1980 to go back to Tahiti. And let me see what time now. It's 5:38. I said the last half an hour would be for questions and answers. So I got a question, and I'm not even sure if we'll be able to get to the Q&A box, Dan. But can you guys, each one of you, can you guys chime in on one lesson you learned from 1975 to 1978 that you guys can take away with you guys as something that something that you can reflect on, something that can inspire others that are considering taking up voyaging as a part of their lives. So I'm going to start with you, John.
Okay. You know, the other part I was thinking when you were telling me, I remember when we got to that airport after the swamping, and I got off the chopper, and I saw Mom and Pop Aikau and Myra and Fred, you know, and Solomon and Clyde, and they were kind of like, well, everybody was just stunned, right? Because Eddie wasn't coming back. And so I remember, I don't know which camera guy that was for what TV show, but the news, and he was trying to get through when Pop was talking in the van, you know, at the edge of the van, and he was saying, well, I wanted to show the emotion, and he was zeroing in on Pop Aikau, and Pop goes, hey, I'll show you some emotion, and Pop just cold cocked that guy, popped him. The camera guy went backwards, and I was going, whoa, man, this is it. And then the next day, we started this border inquiry about a Coast Guard. And I was thinking, wow, we have our work cut out. We have to do a lot to get this thing back to continue and finish what Eddie wanted to see. With that, I wrote some stuff down, and I was just thinking the family of this canoe, you know, this thing became, it's our Ohana around the Pacific. She was the canoe that spawned this whole new fleet, sailing vessels, and a new generation of this crew that continues the knowledge that Mao shared with us. And Mao was the water, the source, the ike, or maybe Mao was the conduit. Almost 50, and the results speak for themselves. The success of the worldwide voyage was connected, all of us under idea of one world. Fortunate to be a part of this. Still going though.
Yeah, still contributing. Snake, how about you? You got anything you wanna add to some kind of closing statement?
You know, this whole project, you know, was, to me, it was a huge family. The family of Hawaii Nui. We all got together, and we've been so close for 40-something years already. you know.
45.
Yeah, knowing each other and the up and down we all had to go through, but we still we connected with each other as a ohana, yeah. They cannot take away from it. You know, we all one. We are Hawaiians.
Billy.
Well, from early days, I just think that like anything, like anything of birth, they're growing pains. We had to learn our mistakes. We made a lot. You know. Sailing mistakes, human error. But at the same time, we did learn, and I think we've grown out of it. We've grown to be better human beings, I guess, you know. And when we try to pass on to the new crews, those who want to join or become a part of this family, is that I mean, to go along, you have to get along. One, yeah, you do. There's only so, if you don't like somebody, there's only the furthest you can get away from anybody 60 feet if you're standing on the money. So you have to get along. And I think that's how we engage our crews, though. We look to see where the synergy is. How do we do things? We learn, and one of the things I really like about our crews, sometimes we don't even know it, but how in tune we are with each other's movements. You know, when someone has to move, you don't have to say, get out of the way, or people they understand the need to synchronize what we do on the canoe. And so we become one body, I believe, like a living being when you're on the canoe. And the heart of that being is the canoe. And, we just provide the rest. But I am grateful for the time I've been on board Hōkūleʻa. I'm grateful that I was selected. I'm grateful I was at the right place at the right time. And until I can't, I'm going to continue.
Right on. Hey, Gordon, you got any comments you want to share? And then we're going to go to Dan, who's got a couple questions.
Well, I certainly am grateful. You know, when I look what's happening throughout Polynesia and the Pacific, and seeing all these other va'as out there, you know, I always go, oh, it all started with that 1976 trip going down to Tahiti. And now you look at it, and it's fantastic. It's more than just navigation. It's a whole world of voyaging and what relates directly to voyage. Because voyaging is only a small part of what takes place. The real part may take place once you land, because the problems we have are not at sea. The problems we have are on land. And we still haven't been able to solve a lot of those problems yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, a couple things too. You know, Johnny was on a vessel on the 78 trip. John, remember that?
Yeah.
And
yes.
And they made it to the Marquesas. They left the same time.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've been very fortunate. My whole family's been fortunate. My mom, dad, my sons, my wife, my sister, my brother. We've all sailed on Hōkūleʻa. And we certainly still support the sailing and traditions and the education it brings forth. Like Dan, we support Imiloa. As you know, Kālepa, we have the first endowment in Ilima's name to bring kids on the Big Island into the planetarium.
Thank you so much for that support.
Yeah. And then Kainoa and his big contribution.
Right. Kainoa Lee. Yeah.
Patricia.
You know, there's Can I say something? Yeah. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
we got a pretty much Page Baba too, yeah, at the
That's
time.
right.
Page Baba, Boku, and Wally.
Cecilia Lindo, education.
Yeah, you know what's sad is, you know, there's a whole new generation of people that are voyaging now, and but no one understands the history that we come from. You know, like the Page Barbers and the Burt Barbers and everyone's contribution to the effort. I mean, everyone knows what their contribution is, but I think it would be better for everybody, more circumspect, if we understood the complete history. I'm gonna go to Dan right now. I'm gonna ask Dan to, you gotta unmute Dan if we got about another 12 minutes left.
Wow, amazing, everybody. Fantastic. I've been getting really great questions. So I'm gonna just go down the list and maybe we can keep these answers as short as you can so we can get through all of them. I'm gonna start with Lori Sudal. She says, thank you for this. Greetings to my Kolohe cousin Gordon. While voyaging, what did you find to be an unexpected joy? What were your greatest frustrations? Were you ever lonely?
My greatest joy was being with all these guys and just being with them through all the aches and pains and all the joys and happiness.
From Tiare Hulan, what relationships, if any, are kept with the Micronesian navigating community or Papa Mau's Ohana? That's to everybody.
Well, I can answer that. We still are grounded, and we are working on actually formalizing our relationship. So ever since the 5 Hawaiian Poll was initiated, along with the 11 Sanawali's voyagers, the ties have been strong. So we are still maintaining, but we're looking at a way to formally recognize our relationships.
Fantastic. Hello from Navajo Nation. Audrey Harvey writes, Arizona. Growing up, did you ever envision being part of an organization like Imiloa? What physical and mental preparation goes into prepping for a voyage?
Imiloa, so that's me, I guess. I never had any expectations, but throughout my career, I've been kind of heading down a road that's been that looks at the way our people learn and the way our people respect nature, as well as a scientific perspective. So yeah, I've been slowly embracing my role at Imiloa. And what was the other part of the question?
Let's see. What physical and mental preparation goes into prepping for a voyage?
Somebody, Billy, you want to take that? What physical and mental preparation to get ready for a voyage?
Well, you do have to be physically prepared, and for a very long time now, we put people through swimming tests, and we also do running tests, strength tests. But the main thing is you have to go through medical screening, and actually the first screening you do about 2 screenings. The first one is done far enough ahead so that if you have issues, you could try to solve those issues. If it's high blood pressure, reduce your intake of salt, those kinds of things. But it's the preparation physically is one thing. The other one is mentally and spiritually. For me, I know that I'm at my healthiest, physically, mentally, spiritually, when I'm on the canoe. It's like we said earlier, it's when you get to land that everything kind of goes to hell. But when you're on the canoe, physically, mentally, and spiritually, I'm at the healthiest. And more so now, because with the advent of social media, and you're constantly on this grid, to be able to disconnect, to get on the canoe and disconnect from all of that, so you can reconnect with things that are important. That's what I like about voyaging.
Great answer, Billy. Mahalo for that. From Dennis Chan, our friend from Kauai, who and how did the steering get figured out rather than steering like a paddling canoe?
God.
Can I see something? The steering?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Steering, Snake. How did it get figured out?
you know, it takes a long time to understand how you can use the steering blade. Yeah, you got to figure out if you go too much blade, the thing would go one way, but then you got to go easy in and out to understand where you want to go. Sometimes you don't need even use the steering blade. You can adjust the sails, make the sails as a steering blade, and understand how the thing, how much, if you want to go up higher or lower, you can just adjust the sail. Yeah, but
Dookie changed.
but you know, Dookie the one pretty much understand.
out.
You know, in 1976,
Yeah.
use a certain way of steering the canoe. You know, he the one made it easier for all of us when we sailed back home. So that part, you know, we thank him, thank Dookie. You know, we're all experiencing Waikiki, separate canoes, and you know, so he's the one pretty much in help mostly, you know, the crew going back home to understand how to use. You know, sometimes you gotta listen and figure out for yourself if you understand the way of steering, because actually it's not hard. It's the idea to understand of it, and you can make it easier for yourself to understand how to steer. Yeah.
But Snake, that was a side sweep that Dookie
Yeah.
introduced. And that was, I can't think of any better way to steer the canoe. Using those side sweeps instead of the center sweep, which can really wear you down.
Yeah, these are some really long paddles, about 12, 13 feet, and they're lashed into the sides of the hulls, and you deploy them by dropping them into the water.
Yeah, the thing with the center sweep though is, you know, especially, it's just good for optics. Yeah.
Yeah.
All you need is one person on the side sweep, but if you want drama, you put 6 people on the middle sweep.
Yeah.
No, Kālepa, it's the middle sweep is if you're that guy, Simmons, you want to, you want to go sailing, you got a bunch of overweight people, put them on the sweep. Guarantee you're going to lose weight by getting flopped all around on the deck.
Yeah. Okay, Dad.
A couple of thoughts in between the questions. This is from Miley Abrams. Aloha, Uncle Gordon. This is so interesting to hear all these stories. I thought I'd heard a lifetime of stories between Uncle David, Kimo, Marion, and you. So just a thought from from Miley. Mahalo for that. An anonymous attendee says, just wondering whose idea it was to first build the Hōkūleʻa. And that's amazing. The petroglyphs had the right angle for the sail.
Gordon, you want to? Well, anybody?
Well, I don't know who was behind the original.
Ben, Herb, and
Tommy, I guess.
Tommy was their idea. I mean, they formulated it. As an anthropologist, I think Ben probably pulled it up. As a waterman.
It was from the bicentennial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the idea itself was launched from Ben Finney's, right,
Sure.
research inquiry, right, and then he recruited Herb was kind of thinking along those same lines, and then they both grabbed Tommy to help help formulate the process.
Yeah, Tommy was, aside from being a really good waterman, he was also working at the state legislature, so he provided some inroads to them.
He was a tough worker.
Yeah. And Tommy wrote the book, the Hawaiian Canoe. So
that's a good book.
I think it was Rudy Choi too. Yeah.
Yeah, Rudy Choi was one of them.
I'm going to jump ahead because I think Billy answered one of the questions from John Herrick having to do with lashings. Being an Eagle Scout, what types of lashings were used? Was there ever a time on the ocean when the lashings became loose and had to be strengthened? Billy came back and said, as mentioned, the canoe was lashed with a method normally used for smaller outriggers. Those did come loose. They were replaced with lashings taught us by our navigator, Ama OluKai, which was of a type needed for a large voyaging canoe. Those lashings were used to this day and have never failed us.
Right on.
Moving on, Brad Schaefer writes, my understanding is that your navigation has a need for finding the local zenith. Now with extensive experiments on land, without something like a steady vertical pole, I found that the typical accuracy for finding zenith is around 3 degrees for many people. I would appreciate your real experience in knowing the methods and accuracy of finding the zenith amongst the stars.
Hey, Paul.
So I guess that's me. I don't know what zenith is the point right above your head that the star passes through. I don't think that it's important to know that, right? I think it's more important to know where the meridian is, which is the imaginary line that runs between the north celestial pole and the south celestial pole, because we don't use zenith stars to figure out our latitude. We use stars that are hovering close to the horizon as they pass over celestial north or they pass over celestial south to establish latitude. So I'm not exactly sure what the question is asking.
Okay. From Tina Chang, how did you resolve conflicts among the crew? I know you talked about it briefly, but that's an interesting question, obviously, from the panel, from the audience.
Are we matured?
What's that?
We matured.
Yeah.
Well,
No, we have.
there's only one captain.
Yeah. There's only one captain.
And
I think, yeah, go ahead, Gordon.
you guys know that guys that, you know, if you told somebody to be back at 0800 because you had to leave and they didn't come back, I put their sea bags on the shore and left them on shore.
Pretty easy, huh?
Yeah.
From Greg Prussia, can you put a map of your voyage? I'm sure that we can come up with something. Oh, actually, Billy came back and said, check out the website, www.hōkūleʻa.com. One can find all the voyages of Hōkūleʻa on that site, including maps. That's great. Carol Holmberg writes, aloha from South Carolina. By the way, we have the Bronx, South Carolina. We have a lot of East Coast people on tonight. Aloha from South Carolina. Did any of you learn some navigating skills in the planetarium?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not so much navigating skills, but in terms of the skill set for navigating, it's a great way to accelerate your learning, because you can replay the night sky over and over and over.
Greg Prussia comes back and says, how old were you guys in 1975?
Oh,
27.
1975. 1975. I was
You're 29.
I was 19.
I was
a baby. I was just starting to learn how to shave.
From Lowell Harrison, I'm also wondering about the star navigation. I understand you recruited a Western navigator for the return from Tahiti. Did you ever have to use a sextant on the voyage to Tahiti, or did you navigate using traditional techniques alone?
No, traditional techniques alone.
Yep.
Never. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Sarah Coe, could you please talk more about the spiritual aspects of celestial navigation and wayfinding? I'm an artist on the Big Island, and I'm doing a wayfinding painting series for Viewpoints Gallery on Maui. I really want to honor all of your experiences and wisdom. Thank you.
Oh, I don't think we have enough time to go into the spiritual aspects of wayfinding, because it takes a lot of contemplation to really do that question justice. So, what's your name, Sarah Cole?
Yes.
I will look up her email address and on the registration form and email her a reply.
Perfect.
Well, the other thing, Dan, you can't get any closer to Mother Nature. I mean, once you're out at sea, you're in her womb, and that whole world becomes a spiritual world.
Mm.
That the movement of the canoe, that's a hula, that's a dance out there.
Yeah.
The sound of the wind, the rain, that's the oli, that's the mele we live with out there. That whole thing is spiritual.
You know, to me, each of us have this our kupuna watching over us.
Yeah.
Whenever we go in the ocean, they're always with us, helping us to understand where we need to go and go there safe and come home safe, yeah. So our kapuna is always with us.
I agree. Mahalo.
From John Herrick, question for Gordon. What did your brother learn or do differently as a result of the swamping of the Hōkūleʻa in 1978? Did he not want to go out again? By the way, I know your brother and your nephews, Gordon and Maikai. Excellent teamwork in terms of the crew.
Well, you know, Norman's a retired match and sea captain. He's a graduate of Kings Point. After the swamping, he never returned back to the canoe from 1978 until we were up in, I think, British Columbia.
95.
These two guys come walking down towards the canoe, and right away I knew from that swagger and sway, it was two of my dearest people to go to sea with. One was Dave Lyman, and the other was my brother Norman. And it took that long for them to return back to the canoe. Yeah. And that was 1995 when they returned. Yeah.
It's good having them aboard.
So many well-wishers sending in their notes and keeping the spirit alive. Derek Pitts from Philadelphia. These are amazing stories. And I love so much. Much respect for all of you. Thanks for sending the invitation, Kālepa. Mahalo. From Don Anderson, aloha. From Oregon, mahalo nui loa for this amazing session. During my 9 years on Maui, I heard a lot about the early days of Hōkūleʻa, but to hear these stories from those who were actually there has been priceless. From Pomai, Bertelman, can each of you share one descriptive word that expresses your hopes for the future of Ohana Wa'a voyaging?
Us.
What's that?
Us. Including Pomai. Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's see, Gordon, let's see, you've written something here. That's good.
That's his nephew, I think.
Is that nephew? Okay. Joy Ansheta, mahalo piha for all the sacrifices you've made. You are our heroes. Any advice for future generations who are committed to keeping these Ba'an traditions alive?
Billy.
Geez. One, take care of the canoe. Always know that's you can't go anywhere without keeping the canoe in shape. Stay as healthy as you can, you know, and bite the hook. I think one of the things that I've been asked a lot from crew members, young crew members at times, especially when they're training, and they would ask, like, when do you know you're going to be on the crew? So my answer to them always is that on the day that the canoe sails, if the land is getting smaller, island getting smaller, you're on the crew. Island is getting smaller, you're not.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. When it's time for you to go, when it's time for you to answer the call, you'll get the call. You know, and I think I've learned that now. You know, I don't have to be on every voyage. I have to be on the one that I'm called to do. That's
Perfect answer.
Love that. From Tony Gowan, I really enjoyed your Real Waterman, and your great memory of sailing Hōkūleʻa for the people of Hawaii and the world. I saw the Hōkūleʻa return to Hawaii. From an anonymous attendee, what do you think Hōkūleʻa's role is going forward?
To continue to be an inspiration to our community.
That's Hōkūleʻa's greatest gift to the world to me, that it inspires. You know, I think there's a story about how I know I went to meet with some kids at Kamehameha schools prior to the worldwide voyage, and he asked them if they had gone to the websites, and they said no. You know, and he asked why not. He said, well, I guess the response to him was, well, it's about you, not about us. You know, but he said, it inspires them to do what they're doing. They may not be voyaging, but the canoe inspires them to do whatever they're doing within the cultural practices that they do.
Ivake mohu I moku vaka.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
From Shane Palakat Nelson. Mahalo nui for this talk story and the panelists. The history of Hōkūleʻa is part of the genesis of the Hawaiian Renaissance. I like this Pauhana style talk story. Let's see, from Sean.
Sean Kanayapuni.
Kanayapuni, yep. What is the role of voyaging in a COVID era?
The role of the canoe in the COVID area is to, and somebody else can answer this question too, but is to think about recovery and resiliency. What are we gonna do when the recovery actually begins? Is to prepare for that recovery process by planning really, really well about the direction that you want to take our community in.
Aloha, Kaʻiulani, Murphy. It weighs in.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, Kaʻiu.
How are you? Always love seeing you good-looking faces and hearing your stories, uncles. Mahalo. Aloha nui.
Aloha, Kaʻiu.
Hi, Kaʻiu.
Okay.
Hey, did you get married yet?
Go get big party, eh?
Yeah, we got to be up to Murphy's grill.
There we go. From Minoaka Makanas, I really want to know how you were able to get back on the canoe and in the water after 78 swamping. Yeah.
Determination, man.
Yeah, there were some really strong people, mentally and physically, and they weren't going to let this thing die. They stepped in to keep it alive.
You know, for me, I enjoy being out in the ocean. You know, it's my way of life. Yeah, the ocean is pretty much mellow for me. Even though it's rough, you can adjust yourself with the roughness and feel all that energy. Yeah, but you know, I cannot leave the ocean. I have to always be in the ocean for me. And I'm so grateful, you know, to be part of this whole voyaging system. Like, you know, and I thank everybody for helping out.
I think that's what happened with the swamping too. It brought more people out. It drummed up support that you never knew existed out there.
Speaking of out there, Jeffrey Hickle, aloha from Madison, Wisconsin. It's 36 degrees here. Mahalo for the talk story and history. He finishes up by saying, what was the biggest unforeseen challenge on the original voyage?
You go, JK.
I would think that, you know, we became better, not only better sailors, but also better people when we got to Tahiti, because we knew that if we took care of Mao and we took care of this canoe, after 600 years, there's never been one that goes back to Tahiti, and here we went and did it. And it's kind of it's kind of a good feeling, and that good feeling still generates me, because, you know, after all those Hōkūleʻa stuff, on Kauai, we've, Dennis, myself, and Dr. Ayu Patrick, who passed away, we had that vision also. So we built a canoe for Kauai. And right now we're just hauling it back out to dry dock. But yeah.
Okay, he's frozen.
He's frozen. I'll go on and let him come back. From Aurora Marin, was there a song or ole which companions you always on these voyages. Aloha from Lopez Island.
Back in training in 1975, the song that gelled the crew. In fact, when we swamped outside of Anahola, there was nothing else to do. You know, we're sitting there waiting, and Boogie Kalama started singing. The song was called The Queen's Jubilee. And that was a song we always sung. And even when we swamped outside of Anahola, there's a point at which he just started singing, and then we all sang too. And at that point, the Sea Flight found us and rescued us, and we got in. That's one of the songs from the early days in the 70s. Now there's so many. One of them was written by, you know, another one written by Boogie, some by Carlos Andrade. And when we got to Tahiti, there was a contest in Tahiti for the Tahitians to write songs, and there are hundreds of songs written, and then finally there was one that had won. So there are a whole bunch of different ones, and then for the worldwide voyage, we all had to learn specific oli, you know, so that we would kahea, oli kahea, call out, and then ask permission to come in, which is kind of interesting. I don't know, Kālepa, I don't know if you were on that. There was a leg, I understand, I think it was in Florida, where they're doing oli kahea, and the chief that was on, you know, they were waiting for the crew to come in, and the crew was waiting for them to allow them in. So luckily there was the Hōkūleʻa's land crew, and the chief asked them, what are they waiting for? And they responded to him, they're waiting for permission. And he said, nobody's ever asked permission before.
Wow.
Yeah, that's something really heavy to me, you know, that for the first time in forever, for that, someone actually asked permission to come ashore.
Like those were the first people, the Seminoles?
Yeah. The Seminoles.
Wow.
Love that. From Courtney Reyes, aloha uncles. Did you do any fishing during your voyages? If so, what was it like? What kind of fish catch?
Anything that swam, we caught it, except whales. But yeah,
fish.
Malolo.
mahi, ahi, aku, swordfish, marlin. Yeah.
We even caught one bird one night.
Yeah, we even caught one bird.
Mao tried to make soup.
Yeah. You know, Gordon, because we heard the bird, right? We heard the noise, and then we didn't pay any attention, and then it cried again. So he went down and he pulled the bird up, and we snagged the bird by its wing. And we're supposed to bring the fishing lines in the afternoon anyway. So he takes the bird off, and he gives it to me, and I throw the bird in the water. he goes, oh, disappointed. What? No, throw the bird.
I'll tell you a story. When we were on a 76 voyage going down to Tahiti, I was on watch. It was late at night, and you remember the deck in the old days was bamboo, 2x4 bamboo, so the water would come through the deck, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there by the steering blade, the steering sweep, and on the side, and I see the water comes through the deck, and I see this bioluminescence. And it's a squid. Squid was pushed through the and it's the squid is being rushed down towards Mao in the back. So I'm looking at it, and I see the lights sliding toward Mao, and he gets to Mao, and with his knife he goes, and he calls me over, come over, and he whispers to me, go get Shoyu. And he cut it up and ate it right there. So it was pretty cool.
Another lesson. I'm assuming this next is from a relationship with Lacey Beach, Diana Beach.
Oh yeah, that's his sister.
Okay, aloha, Diana. She says the continuity of your camaraderie and your commitment to our Hōkūleʻa is a beautiful blessing to all of us. Mahalo nui. Mahalo to you, Diana.
sister.
Thanks to her brother for
Yes.
providing a vision that took us around the world.
Yes.
Yeah. I know Noah talks so much about Lacey. From Alan Tokunaga, mahalo everyone for a wonderful talk story. From Catherine Oliver, mahalo to all for participating. I always learn so much from listening to you.
Hey, Doc. He's our onboard doctor.
All right. But who's the chef, right?
Who's the chef?
And I think that's something maybe you talk about is one of the things I've learned is that, you know, they're always thinking of, okay, so crew members are always talking about who's going on the next voyage and all that. But the first question is, wait, who's the chef, right?
But I always say, I don't care who's navigating. I trust them all, right? So I want to know who's cooking. If you have a bad cook on board, you're going to lose your crew.
Yeah, yeah.
You're going to lose them.
Actually, I did the cooking in 76 coming home. Everybody was sick. I was sick too one day, but I did all the cooking and it was fun. Everybody enjoyed, yeah.
Well, you know, it wasn't only fun, Snake. It's how you just stepped into it without even being asked. And that was so important because I never thought about who was going to do the cooking. And Snake just took over the responsibility. So every time Snake was on a canoe, I know he could cook and I know he could do inventory. So we could shift weight around in the canoe when needed, get stuff because Snake would know what compartment it was in. So the cook is more than just a cook in Snake's situation.
Pretty important, the cook and the fisherman.
Yeah.
I have a good friend, John Mclnerny, who wrote in, love hearing stories about surviving when things go wrong at sea. He works at the Long Beach Aquarium. So he's around this environment quite a bit. So I'm sure it's very inspiring for him. I just want to say mahalo nui to all of you. I can tell you, you know, firsthand, my experiences with you and understanding what's taking place, the molelo from over the years has been so inspiring, not just for me and for our company in Hawaii when we engage with you all, but knowing how the rest of the world feels. You guys are such an inspiration, and the trails that you've blazed, you know, what you've done over your years has been nothing short of just incredible, inspirational, wonderful. I mean, the audience is speaking. I feel very much the same way they do, that we're just are so grateful for you all. And mahalo for your vision and for your experiences and your commitment over the years. It's just been amazing. So mahalo nui to all of you.
Oh,
Again, from me, again, I want to thank Dan for being a part of the team. Abraham and John and Billy and Gordon, thank you so much. You guys are all my heroes. You know what? I'm just gonna close with this. You know, in 1976 or 1977, I was waiting for the National Geographic documentary to come out, and at the closing of that documentary, it closed with a phrase something like, "Too bad they didn't know how to be better brothers," and that really pissed me off because we were just getting our feet underneath us. Give us some time. And in 1980, when I sailed with Gordon to Tahiti and back to Hawaii, I mean, I was like, my team was to demonstrate to the world that we are better brothers. Yeah, we are better brothers, but we need to learn how to do things and how to behave like better brothers. And that's what this voyage has been about for me. It's about learning to do better for each other. You know, I always set up as a goal for crew members. I told her, you know, in 1995 when he sailed Hawaii Loa down, me and Bruce, you know, I was confronted with, now I need to get the crew engaged in. And I thought about what would be something that is inspirational that we could all measure ourselves on. So my goal, what I told the crew is, at the end of the trip, I want you to be able to say that I'm a better brother to my colleagues or my crew members my fellow crewmembers than I was at the beginning of the trip. So think about all the things you need to do to be a better brother at the end of the trip. And that's the thought I left them with. So that's the thought I want to leave the audience with is to be a better steward to the land, to be a better, more responsible to the community you reside in, and stay tuned because there'll probably be more of these talks coming your way. Thank you.
Mahalo, Kālepa.
Aloha.
Yeah. Mahalo.
All right.
Mahalo.
Mahalo nui.
On behalf
Right.
of all of us, I'd like to extend our aloha to the Ohana Jean-Claude Teri Ero Terai,
Yeah.
who just left us. And he's in Tahiti, but he's still part of our voyaging family. And we aloha them.
Jean-Claude passed away.
Yeah, Jean-Claude passed away.
You also have to say goodbye to Tua. He has to leave tonight. He's been forced out.
I thought he was Hawaiian already.
Is he going back to the Cook Islands?
He's back to Raro. He has to.
Oh my gosh. Well, he's got to hope that they let him in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were still locked down.
Yeah, because I have friends that just sailed down and they could not leave their sailboat. They wouldn't let them ashore. Yeah.
Good.
John, take us to Aitutaki.
So all you guys, mahalo.
Yeah.
Take care of each other. Yeah. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, thank you much.
Yeah,
Captain.
you guys.
Thank you.
And
Thanks, Kālepa.
Gordon, John.
Okay, take care.
Yep.